Hello, everyone. I'm Davy Jags, and this is Sparkle On. Sparkle is your happiness, passion, and self worth, and it's discovered through the power of creativity. I'm so excited today to have an amazing performer. Her name is Laura Desirée. She ignited her career in New York City, in the Lower East Side, at high end hotels, and more. She was originally a burlesque dancer, and Laura is an intimacy coordinator, which we talk a lot about in Hollywood, how necessary it is. She is also an adult industry expert, sex educator, and activist. I met Laura through Sanctum, which is a private membership club that essentially creates erotic entertainment for their members. And so I was invited to this event in LA. This was last week, and Laura was there. And so we're gonna dive into her career as a performer, as an artist. And so, Laura, my first question to you is, how were you called to erotic entertainment?
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. This is so fun. I love it. Making a life in erotic entertainment, which I've done. I'm 36 and I've been in this since I was about 21. It's something that felt undeniable inside of me. And I think a lot of people wrestle with this. You know, if you're born and raised in sort of a sex shame based household where there's a lot of erotophobia or fear around expressing and talking about sexuality, that can limit a person from seizing this knock at the door. And for myself, I grew up in dance, I grew up in theater. And so for me, as I started blossoming and getting all curious about what this thing called sexuality and arousal and sensuality was all about in my early 20s, I realized, oh, no, no, this is something I want to explore more and something I want to share with audiences. I was a go-go dancer. Then I became a burlesque performer. Then I became the host of a Playboy TV series called Naked News, which I did for 7 years. Somewhere along that journey, I started doing more of the erotic content creation for my fan platforms, stage content that was of much more of an explicit and erotic nature, and now, of course, to where we've landed as the creative director for Sanctum, the most cutting edge, fantastical, delicious wonderland of erotic live entertainment.
And it absolutely was wonderful. I posted this on my close friend story. Maybe I should have made it public. But I was saying how I've been feeling this like coming off of this like post dopamine high and like depressive nature that I mean, I'm also like, now I finally just got my period today, so I'm like, oh, I'm relieved. But like literally, like I think me and my boyfriend Tom, like we have been coming off of this like kind of euphoric whirlwind the last couple of days. But I think some of it is, especially when you go to a show in the theater, something like burlesque, it creates this whole different escapism. And that's what I felt at your show in LA. But I did want to go back a little bit to the beginning of your career. Did you always, did you grow up as a dancer? Did you always identify as a dancer? And what was that moment that you knew you needed to enter into the form of burlesque? Because I always love like seeds in like the creative process. That's always what interests me, so I want to go there with you.
Sure. Yeah, I was a dancer most of my early teens, even before that. Most of my early life, I was a dancer. So I was very physical and comfortable with my body, making shapes with it, making moves with it. I never had a body that I felt particularly confident in when I was growing up. I'm 6 feet tall and I have no curves. I'm built very much like a column. So, when you're a high schooler, it's a very pressuring environment as some bodies are starting to develop in certain ways and others just don't seem to be picking up those changes. So I remember feeling very self-conscious the whole time. And, I was watching so many movies as a young person. That was a big part of my upbringing was watching and studying some of the classic old Hollywood films, MGM musicals, film noirs, these movies where women were portrayed and depicted as invincible, as almighty, as very lyrical and goddess-like. These really powerful and profound depictions of women, be it of ultimate good or ultimate evil. This was so much in my information of what a woman could be at her brightest and biggest. And so growing up, only having movies to raise me, I was raised by a single father. I really deferred to them. And I noticed as I was getting older and starting to enjoy sharing my love of dancing and my love of performing, there was this exciting spark called sensuality. And I noticed it when I was go-go dancing in the Lower East Side in New York City. And my God, the command, the control you can have of an audience in the way that you lure them and permit them parts of your body, exposing parts of it, sharing and revealing parts of it. And that level of power and that transaction between the audience and between myself, I found it incredibly liberating. I found it ultimately just so inspiring. I wanted to see how I could continue to present myself, my raw, authentic sexuality, how I could continue to challenge the audience in receiving me in all of this glory and sometimes gory.
No, I love how you talked about it as a spark, again, that, like, I come from an athletic background, and obviously dance is a sport too. And it's almost like this power and surrender that you have to balance as you are creating rhythm in your body. And I think rhythm is a very, very powerful tool, not just to express and perform for an audience, but also in the ways that we feel an essence of calm. I think artists have this depiction of, mania and like drinking over late nights over whiskey or something. And it's like, I know as an artist and as a writer, I feel most in tune with myself, honestly, without the vice, but is when all of those synchronies come together. I don't know if you feel the same way, or at least in the early part of your career where you could follow that curiosity.
Yeah, it's a very like confidence inducing moment when this rhythm or this flow state, it's a moment where we're committed to what we're doing. We're confident in what we're doing, and we're calm enough to settle into it that we can really stand proud or begin to stride. That was a whole learning curve in itself, right? It's one thing to learn about this power of being a sexually prideful woman and standing on stage. It's another to harness it. I always like to think of, you know, your your sexual expression as this wild horse that's running alongside you your whole life. There's a moment where you saddle it, but can you ultimately steer it, right? There's these years where we're so new to finally getting on that horse, and it's taking us for a ride, and we're going faster and further and seeing more beautiful landscapes than we ever knew were available to us. But you have to get it under your control. You have to be able to steer it, and that's when life gets really good.
No, I mean, the way that we should make a short film. Like that that was like beautifully put. Like I had it all in my head. Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that offline. That was awesome. Um and I think like what you are describing is that essence of discovering that you maybe had this erotic force, right? Why is that important for anyone to find, but especially women, especially young women when they are coming into leaning into desire? Like I think we're all like on the internet again talking about Twilight and Bella discovering her sexuality.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's been forbidden forever. And no matter how many advancements or revolutions we live through and see lives and conditions improving, there are still places that need immense tending to. And the acceptance of ourself as pleasure seekers is the biggest area of improvement when it comes to really gaining that mental health and wellness. I can't preach it loudly enough. We keep saying, why do I feel a little lackluster about my life? Why am I lacking in confidence? Why am I feeling unsatisfied? Where's this loneliness coming from? So much of that stems from our fear of accepting that we deserve pleasure.
Mm.
And, some of that could come in the form of what does your regular self-pleasure practice look like? I would advise everyone to really prioritize that. It sounds like something like we often get, we get laughed at for saying, oh, I lost a few hours of my day yesterday because I took out that vibrator and I had myself a good time. That is so important. Or in other situations, we say you shouldn't. There's religious overtones and guidelines that say that we should not have this as a part of our lives. And really, there are some phenomenal thought leaders over the years and decades of this specific mission. I think of someone like Audre Lorde, a poet and a writer and an activist who wrote a document called Uses of the Erotic. And what she so expertly does, right, is to anyone who's read this, and it's a very accessible, very short
Yeah,
essay. I
it's
promise you can
phenomenal.
get
Yes.
through it and digest it. This idea that eros, this force of erotic, which, yes, of course, houses sexuality, sexual desires, and sexual drive, but it also is the center home of creation. It's the center home of passion. It's the center home of intensity. These are the things that make us feel alive and purposeful. If we can't fan that flame of the erotic within us, we're going to see these areas begin to snuff out. So that's where we get this depressive state. So I encourage people when you're feeling like your days are dragging, when you're feeling like it's hard to seize that zest in life, where's your pleasure practice? Have you let yourself pursue pleasure lately, even in a solo capacity?
And so, and just to share little bit more vulnerably, but this is more for the people that have been through any sort of sexual violence and trauma. Some of my experiences, at least with self pleasure practices and stuff, were out of abuse, right? And so I got a really weird relationship with it. I mean, up until today. Um, it's something that I've slowly and slowly have been able to work through, but it was always like it was never for me. It was always for someone else. And I think many people go through all different experiences of sexual trauma. And so what does that reclaiming look like in a way that is for your own creativity and for your own safety?
The reclaiming is perhaps the most important dedication we can make to ourselves as folks that have endured injustice and violence to our bodies, to our state of wholeness. Um, the healing is what should be prioritized above anything else. I as well, I share that. I've come from some unfortunate experiences of coherent and incoherent sexual assault. And when you live with that, um, it's important to really approach reconnecting with the body with a gentleness.
Mm,
I think a lot of the times we just refer to our sexuality or look to get in touch with our sexuality by way of, say, our genitals. And if
mm,
that area of our body has been made to feel unsafe or has been abused or has been endangered, you have to start in other ways. We can start with really powerful self-talk. We can start with a really beautiful, daily mirror practice of just scanning the body and assuring that you're landing love in all the places that you're looking at. One of my favorite things to do when I'm feeling out of my body and I'm feeling like maybe I'm revisiting some of those memories because they live with us and they live in us
yeah.
is a practice that one of my burlesque teachers introduced us to when I was at the New York School of Burlesque and I was, 20 years old. Her name was Darlinda, just Darlinda, and she taught us this practice of imagining that you have a bar of soap in your hands and you turn on your favorite song, something that makes you feel safe, sensual, and entirely your own. You build up the lather in that palm, you build it up, and then you start by just miming, pushing the lather around the body. And it becomes this full embracing activation of love and touch with care and just an activating of your sensual self, because if the music is playing, maybe you start moving to it. It's been one of my ultimate activities when I'm looking to even build a new act. If I need to build a new act and I say, what am I going to do with this? I have no inspiration for it whatsoever. I say, let's build the soap, let's build the lather, and let's go push it around the body,
I
let's go
love
get that
that.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so powerful, and you can't stop when you get up the arms. You got to do the entire body as if you're in the shower. It sounds ridiculous, and I promise it makes an effect.
No, it doesn't sound ridiculous. And I'm so glad that you brought it up because obviously we talked about some of the things that we were going to discuss, but I was driving on the way here and I haven't heard the song in probably since what I'm about to tell you, but I heard the song "Never Be the Same" by Camila Cabello, and oh my god, I had sex all day with a guy in Italy to this song, and it was just on repeat, and I was like, wait, okay, we need. I'm going back. I'm kind of flashing back, not to the well, I am flashing back to the Italy memory, but I'm also simultaneously flashing back to the party last Saturday. And one of the things that I wrote about was that when I first arrived, the experience felt a little fragmented. Absolutely, because I was freaking out. But I didn't know what to expect, but I was taking, my writer brain was taking note of the lighting, was taking note of the smell, was taking note of the outfits, the people, and particularly the music. And the music really struck with me. I had to like Google, I'm like, what were these sounds? It felt like I was kind of in a sound bath meditation, but like a little bit more exotic. And I wanted to touch on that point around what you said about the self-love practice of music. What does specific rhythms and maybe singers and pitches and stuff, how does that play a role in unlocking that erotic force for yourself and also that healing?
I've never gone this way in a conversation, and I feel like I've waited my whole life to go this place. I'm like, did I find someone that's like at that perfect area of examination where I'm so attached to the impact that sounds and atmosphere, audible atmosphere can make to how we show up and how we express ourselves. And I love that this is something that you picked up on as well. I think vibrationally,
Mm,
there's a lot of inspiration and lead that we take from what we're hearing, right? If you enter a space and they're blasting Rage Against the Machine, whether or not you choose to actually spring into action and headbang, you're going to feel your body kind of get ready to fight. You're going to feel your body start to activate. The nervous system starts to
right.
activate, right? It's that wonderful veil between magic and reality, the way that we as humans are affected by music. And so it's intentional. What you're hearing at our events is entirely intentional. The pace that we have is curated. We don't ever want you to feel that there's a pressure or a pursuit that feels too intense or too nerve-wracking. We're very aware that a lot of people come into the space and it's perhaps their first foray into this kind of an event. So we don't want the music to be too overwhelming. It's a delicate balance. You can't have the most intense Gregorian chants, because then people that are afraid of it being a cult will think they're actually walking into a cult seance ritualistic experience.
Yeah.
But, you also need to ensure that you're playing something that has enough drive in it, right? We don't want the songs to feel too isolated. The idea is that it's a weaving theme throughout the night. I've always laughed at how many times I've had music playing in my sex life, and I'm so attentive to the music that I don't want it to be a pop song where I can figure out that, oh wow, we had sex for half of Britney Spears' Slave for You. That means only lasted 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Wow, that's, you know what I mean? Like, I don't ever want you to be so fixated on the music that you're able to calculate this amazing time. It actually only lasted one song. I want you to feel like the permission of pleasure is something that's lasting and rising all night long.
Wow, I just realized that is why I played that same Never Be the Same song over and over and over again. But also in my writing practice, I do that with a lot of different songs. I'll sit there and I will write until I finally get what I need to say out. Never really thought about the same thing for having sex, but I'm seeing these parallels very clearly. See, this is why this show is becoming a masterclass on how to be a better artist. Um, Speaking of your performance at Sanctum, do you ever get stage fright?
I do. I still get stage fright and it's such a gift. Stage fright is such a fucking gift. There are so few moments in life where you feel truly present. And I mean inhaling and exhaling and in those seconds realizing you're alive. And stage fright is one of those. Stage fright is what keeps you humble. Stage fright is what keeps you professional and doing your best. I think the moment that I would lose it, I would need to step away. I don't know,
Mm,
refry my brain in some way or work to get it back. Stage fright is something that is always going to be there for me, especially when it's a performance that does have that layer of maybe emotional vulnerability. It's not just a shock content piece. I do a lot of shock content pieces, but when there is emotion, when maybe the story that you're telling has an emotional arc to it, a fight that comes to resolution, a longing that's finally met, a hunger that's finally satiated. These are all opportunities to bring emotion into what you're bringing to the stage. It's not just the physicality, it's the emotional as well. So that can feel like something to prepare for. It's like getting ready to jump out of an airplane.
yeah.
You know your song is coming up in fuck 30 seconds. Oh my God. Even though I know exactly how it's going to go. I know
Yeah.
exactly how it's going to, I know what we're doing. I know the backup plans. I know the emergency exits of the aircraft. It doesn't matter. It's like that is the gift, that moment where the heart rate increases and you say, here we go. And that's also why I can't stop doing it.
No, it sounds so thrilling. And to that point, um, how does the Sanctum shows, because you obviously you worked on a number of different shows, you produce a lot of different things. How do those shows different from others? And then at Sanctum, when we were there, was this choreographed?
Sanctum is a standalone in my performance career across the board, be it in my past work, my present work that still happens and is ongoing. Why it's so standalone is because of the permissions we have around explicitness, obviously, the availability that we have to tell these stories. I mean, oftentimes you can come very close to satisfying that fantasy that the audience has, but it's very rare that you're able to actually embody it and actually bring it to the audience. And at Sanctum, we do. Now, of course, there's an enormous amount of protocol that goes with that. I imagine we might talk about that coming up. But it's the opportunity that we have to really embody the erotic and to make flesh of fantasy. Oh my God, that's a great Billy Idol song, by the
Yeah.
way. Flesh
Yes.
of fantasy.
I love that. Another song to add to the playlist. We'll make a playlist after this and share it with everybody. um and yeah, so going into that protocol. So what are some people like what can they expect coming to an event like Sanctum or even other shows that you've produced? Because I think everyone has a fantasy, but then there is the reality. Like Tom and I, like we had numerous conversations of like different scenarios of basically not contingency plans because I think that sounds like we are jumping off an airplane, but like we knew that we were going to be put in a curated environment that was going to unlock something different than anything that we've ever done before. And so we kind of had those conversations. We had those conversations of like, if either of us felt uncomfortable, like how are we going to handle like a possible like person that wasn't either one of us. So what would be like your quick like 101 of what to expect or talk about before you enter an event like this?
I do a lot of these calls with new guests. A lot of them are couples,
Hmm.
and I get an understanding of how they're entering the space. So some people have experience attending lifestyle events or play parties or kink events. Some people have no experience whatsoever. The rule of all rules that I like to make for first timers is um, go in with the excitement to watch, go in with the adventure shared between you, that the two of you are going in as explorers together.
Hmm.
If you're going in with a partner, the minute that you start to go on solo side quests, or the moment that you start to quote unquote play from other sides of the room or separate, that can leave one side of the partnership or the relationship perhaps feeling quite uncomfortable. And
Mm.
we don't know until that happens. So, for folks that are coming for the first time, I always say to them, if the two of you can set off into this adventure tonight and make viewing everything the main goal, you're going to do great. Because some
Yeah.
people think, oh my gosh, I'm going to a party. Do I have to be physical? Oh my
Right.
gosh, what happens if someone approaches us? What happens if my partner gets approached, but I don't? What happens if I see someone I'm interested in and they're not? What do I do? And if it's your first time, I say eat with your eyes.
Mm.
Take away the pressure of expecting how to prepare a night of just so much physicality. Don't start there. A lot of urgency can take away agency. And I don't want anyone entering the space to feel they have to make urgent decisions about how they're involving and enjoying themselves at this event. So, much like visiting a new location, a new city, a new planet, some of us have been lucky to go. I would say look around and get as much in your eyes as you can. And then when you get home, the two of you share the story of everything that you saw. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
go in saying, okay, we're investigative journalists. We're going in. This is a fantasy safari. This is a trip to a new kind of world. We need to gather as much information as we can, and we need to look at everything
Yeah.
and go from that place.
Yeah, and I would say even from like my own experience, I think that like that's the best advice because I think also anything that comes after watching with that excitement and watching like with your partner, everything else will be natural, right? Like if there is the desire to participate. And I think that was like one of the most interesting things as we were at this event. But then I was also curious for you was like, how do you find this chemistry with the partner that you're performing with, your co-star? And I'm going to ask the question that I think we're all wondering because let me tell you guys, the chemistry was sparkling, okay? And I just want to know, have you ever caught feelings for your partner and like what do you do? And then I know obviously like you work with other actors that might happen too. How do you continue to keep this professional?
Sure. And Busted, that is absolutely a real life partner of mine.
Ah,
You
yes,
were
I
witnessing,
knew
you were witnessing authentic desire, authentic chemistry. It's such a great joy to be able to include that in our life, to have that outlet as well as two performers that exist in this, to know that, hey, every once in a while we get up on stage and we do this. But I've absolutely been paired with other people. And a big reminder throughout the entire journey is that we are in support of each other. And a lot of us come to it with different backgrounds. A lot of our roster of talent, they have other partners, they have some other performing partners, but we're coming into this as a job.
Yeah.
That's something that's understood. There's such an enormous amount of communication in a very professional nature in the lead up. There's very specific documentation. I mean, we go through a very thorough testing protocol that must be completely checked off in order to book the gig. There's an incredible amount of preparation of the scenes themselves. So we want to be in support, but a big direction that I've given everyone along the way is when you are paired with someone new, and the two of you need to build a quick chemistry. The most important thing we can say to each other is not just what's on our no list, but what
Mhm.
do we like? Because that changes from day to day. That also changes from partner to partner. So if I was paired with someone that I'd never met before, you know what I'd say to them? I'd check in with myself and I'd go, I'm feeling really romantic tonight. I'm going to need a lot of kissing. I'm in the mood for a lot of kissing. How do you feel about that? Are you able to do that? Are you feeling like a lot of kissing tonight? Great. Can we do that at the beginning of the scene? What can I do for you that you're in the mood for? Oh, you're in the mood for me to choke and spank you. Great. Let's talk about intensity. You know? It's so important to know what your scene partner is in the mood for. That becomes the roadmap to the rest of the act. It's a crucial step.
And I feel like, okay, and correct me if I'm wrong because again, my memory was a little blurred coming off of this high, but like I feel like this whole event was a big life lesson on sex education, not just like from your performance, but like everyone, like it just felt like you couldn't even shake someone's hand without saying like, yes, you could shake my hand. And I know that this was a very, like, this might not be the experience everywhere you go at events like this. Like consent was the
Yeah.
number one rule at Sanctum, but even watching you and your partner was like, you guys had that communication. And I think there's this big misconception with having sex that it's just always a flow state. And
Yeah.
can you speak to kind of what communication looks like? Because for me,
Yeah.
I know it makes everything sexier, it makes everything better. Um, but a lot of people might be too afraid to even speak during sex.
Mm. Yeah, I think a lot of people living in the consent-focused culture that we are of our modern world, you know, post Me Too, a lot of talk in podcasts, media, educational platforms. We're seeing a lot of this enthusiasm around embracing consent culture, which is so crucial and so important. But people are terrified. How do I implement this?
Right.
Am I supposed to look at it as a stop sign on a highway and go, oh, I would like my left hand to touch your right breast. May I do that? This is where people are getting it wrong.
Mm.
There is no need for an urgent stop where everyone has to take their hands off each other. Of course, if that's voiced and one side of the entanglement says, get your hands off me, you take the hands off. But having this open dialogue is actually so sexy. I think when you tell someone, it's important to tell your partner what you want from them. That way, they also know what's permitted and where they're going. So, say you're having sex with someone for the first time, you don't necessarily know all of the permissions and preferences. It's that dance of me telling this person, I really like when you put your teeth on my neck. I need you to do that right now. I really need you to do that right now. Oh, just grab my tit a little bit longer. Just hold on to it a little bit, or just squeeze a little bit tighter. So we guide them by what we want. And
Mhm.
of course, you don't have to be as vocal as me. Sometimes I talk way too much. But but you can also ask them, what turns you on? What can I do for you? Now I want to get you off. What can I do for you? Or even the approach of, I'm really tempted to do this. I'm really tempted to just spank you right now on the bottom because it's right in my face. That way you're giving them the option. You're not saying, may I land a hand on your ass cheek. You're saying, you know what? I feel real tempted with the way this ass is in front of me right now. I'd like to give a little spank. How do you feel about that? It's an ongoing communication. It's an offering of information of what you're interested in, and it's an inquiry of what they're interested in. We go back and forth, and shockingly becomes the dirty talk that you've been missing in the bedroom.
There you go, guys. If you knew you were missing something, Laura just told you how to fix it. um, Going back to a little bit more about the event and kind of how I first felt like it was fragmented. And then there was a point in time where it just became all flow state. And I felt like I was transported to another realm of a universe and the lighting, the smell. Like I literally went into like Aesop like store the next day and was like, let me find the fragrance that was in the bathroom. I'll tag it. But and I am not an influencer, so that was really ridiculous me saying that. But anyways, I I guess from your experience of being the one that's like has the lens outside looking in, you produce these events with choreography. Every activation throughout the night is scheduled, it's intentional. How do you know that someone there is going to kind of experience what I did? How do you create that? And then what are some things that maybe do surprise you that you didn't expect, that you're like, oh, wait, this is why I'm an artist. And that's cool because I didn't plan that.
I love that you're picking up on all of these intentional details, right? And one of the great joys about the LA show in particular is that we have a phenomenal programmer out there, a woman named Dawn, who really is hands-on in building the specific acts. So everything that you saw that hit the stage and those ambient performances, that was the fabulous Dawn. I'm always happy to receive her event concepts and to look at what she's thinking because we do want to remain aligned and consistent across all the cities that we program in. So the Los Angeles show, I mean, there was just so many of those details that came together beautifully. How do we know what to program? A lot of it is just throwing things against the wall. I'll be honest. A lot of it is, investigating some trends that exist in, call it erotic culture, be it porn trends, be it what you're seeing pop up on social media as clickbait. A lot of this is important. Like the fact that we just had this whole Western moment with Cowboy Carter, Beyonce, and
Yeah.
and everyone's wearing cowboy boots and everyone's wearing cowboy hats. I'm programming a Western show for January. Like
Oh
there
my
is that.
God, please let me be there. I will show up in my sparkly cowboy hat.
See, there's that level of it, of trying to decide what the theme might be. But then when you're actually programming a show, you want to have a graduation of intensity. I think that's very important because there are people that arrive right as doors open and
Yeah.
they stay with the night the whole way through. So you want to graduate and scale up the intensity. You might start with something a little bit softer, a performance that feels like an invitation, maybe something that's kiss and touch heavy, but not penetrative, maybe not even naked. There's just that romance that lures you and hooks you. You feel flirty, you feel curious to proceed. Then the meat of the show, right in the middle of it, we've now gained confidence. Maybe we're going to try a little bit more full throttle explicitness. Maybe that middle show has sex in it, right? We're
Yeah.
talking everyone is ready to go, and maybe there's a great couple and there's a little storyline around it, but we bring you the sex. And then later in the night, that is sort of the wild card. There's three shows, roughly three main stage shows throughout the night, and then ambient things happening everywhere. But that wild card last slot of the night is something I love to use as a truly experimental moment because kink is very popular. Kink is
Yes.
very diverse. BDSM as a cultural movement and as a community, there are so many directions you can go. And I think it's so important to explore some of that and to stage some of that by the professionals who are in that lifestyle and for our audience to begin their own education of it. Obviously it's best for them to witness it before they enter into it physically. So I usually like to reserve that final slot for something that's a little bit more boundary pushing. And anywhere I can, I try and fit in some queerness. Okay. And if it's girl, girl, great. If it's a MMF or male, male, female threesome, I'm going to have a little action of those guys at least acknowledging each other, right? I like to have a nod to queerness because I myself require it in my erotica.
Yeah. No, the way you kind of broke down that, I mean, I also experienced it as a three-act structure because I was there pretty much until the end. Um, what I found, so well, actually, I need this question answered first. The second time that you and your partner were downstairs performing, it was on this like circular ottoman. Was there a spotlight on you towards the end of you guys finishing your performance, or was that in my head?
Pardon the addition of I'm actually at Sanctum right now, and so
Amazing.
I'm gonna turn us this way. I've got some amazing people. Oh, there's mirrored surfaces everywhere. Here we go. I'm at
Amazing.
Sanctum right now. So some giggles in the room here. There was absolutely a spotlight.
Okay,
There was a
great. Because
hundred
I was
percent.
like, again, I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't know what was real and what I was just making up in my mind. So the theatrics of it
But
was
but But
absolutely real.
the spotlight was not powered by technology. The spotlight, I don't know if you remember this, it came from an aura that was between your legs, darling, and it just shot forth at us. So actually, you powered that spot. Like you're talking about this and transformation you went on. Yeah, I know. It granted me spotlight to have the best show of my life. So thank you.
No, see, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, there was, oh my God, guys, there was, it really was a three-act structure because at one point you went upstairs to the main room. Mind you, it's two California king beds. And for the majority of the evening, they were empty. And then, like, couples would trickle in. And at one point, I went downstairs to get another espresso martini. I came up, and there was the most people that I've seen ever in one room having sex, but it was beautiful. Like, it was like everyone was kind of just this dance of like going back and forth of like what they were into, what they were, and it was like conversational. It was just so interesting how I could literally break down the movie like Save the Cat like beats, like story beats in my head. I'm crazy. Um but I think going away from that exactly, like I want to know what your experience of joy is in these events when it's happening, when you're in your zone. And then was there ever a time that you didn't experience this joy anymore? We all get burnt out. This is your profession. You're doing this all the time. How do you come back to find that for yourself? We talked about reclaiming already, but for you.
Yeah, burnout is such a real thing, especially in entertainment and in live event production. It's constant. And so I've experienced an enormous amount of burnout in my career. And it's about stepping away from the performance itself. I'm in burnout right now, and we
Mm,
have an event on Saturday, and that's tomorrow night. I'm not performing in it. I'm choosing to stay within my jurisdiction of creative director and not jump on stage, which is, of course, a wild temptation at all times. But it's important because you want to be doing your most inspired work. It's not just your best work, it's your most inspired work. And that only comes from a place of a well-fed inspiration source. If you
mhm.
don't have that, or it's depleted, then you're not going to be providing the level of entertainment, the quality that you want to be known for.
Yeah. And I know we touched upon this in the very beginning, but it's the theme throughout the whole show. And just to kind of round it out, I know you shared this on Instagram. I've been thinking about it nonstop. It's been in my head rent free. Um, how is sexual energy creative energy? How do we unleash this?
I'm just going to give a little beat to the room here. Are there voices carrying over on your end, or is it
No, no,
okay? I just want to make sure that we don't have to retake.
yeah.
Um, could you give me that question one more time?
How is sexual energy creative energy?
Sexual energy and creative energy come from the exact same place. It's why we fantasize when we're in pursuit of orgasm. It's why our minds go to make pictures inside of our heads that bring us to that up the roller coaster, down the roller coaster feeling. So, having a touch base with your erotic energy is going to provide you the most elaborate, boundless, limitless, creative opportunity. So again, it's like if you're in a slump, all I can say to people is go masturbate. If you're in a creative slump
Love
and
that.
whatever it is you do, if you're a writer, if you're a set designer, if you're experiencing a creative slump, it's time for you to say, you know what, enough pressure and demand of what the deliverable is. I am going to be selfish for the next 2 hours of my day, the next 20 minutes of my day, whatever it is. And I'm going to get in touch with what gets me off. It's amazing how those two are connected. Again, I think of Audre Lorde, uses of the erotic. There's an incredible sort of, 10 Commandments declaration about how important Eros and the erotic force is within us as creative folks. The more embracing you are of your erotic self, of your sensual self, of your wild and an untamed self, the more creative you're going to find yourself. Like that's just what it comes down to because we can't put restrictions up. You can't put fences around that.
Well, you heard it here first, everyone. From an expert, Laura says masturbate and sparkle on.
You got it.
Thank you, Laura. This was amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me into this very, very special space. You are a true sparkle queen, and I am always cheering you on.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you back at Sanctum sometime. Thank you for joining us. And to everyone listening and watching, sparkle on.
Sparkle on. Thanks. That was awesome. That was one of my favorite episodes, Laura. That was
Oh,
great.
thank you so much. You're amazing. I'm so happy that you came out. And like I said, I saw you there and I was like, I'm gonna give that distance. But I've been watching your stories and I'm
Oh,
freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, it was a good experience. Amazing. Because you never know. So
no,
I'm
no, I
I'm
get
so
it.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
you need anything for this, let me know. If you want to do another touch base or get in touch with Dawn or whatever, just let me know, okay?
I will. I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, darling. You take care.
Bye.
Bye.